Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. You just never know when I'm going to be live streaming. So, yeah, it is 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, 6:08 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in North Carolina, Central North Carolina, just outside of the state capital of Raleigh that I am live streaming right now as we speak. So, I hope everybody's doing well out there if you're awake. So, and if you're on your way to work, hopefully it'll be an awesome day. So, as awesome as it can be under the circumstances of going to work, right? Yeah. So, reason I'm actually going to be streaming this morning, and I touched this subject already, and I had technical difficulties on that last video where it was cut abruptly short. But I wanted to go and revisit this video, revisit the topic. And the topic about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, whenever I did this, was, the podcast of Deep Fat Fried having issues with Vaush, which, of course, I took the side of Deep Fat Fried, the amazing atheist Paulie, and the amazing atheist brother, Scotty. I took their side over Vaush's nonsense. And, so I'm going to play another snippet where they're really having some issues with Vaush. And I'm also going to give you my take as to why I think that Vaush, for all intents and purposes, has departed from the left while pretending to be otherwise. So, and here's the thing, when it comes to Vaush, I mean, I want to make this clear as I can, to make it as clear as I can, just in case people wondering. I I'm not out there to basically, what should I say, make needless gossip or innuendo or anything of that nature, um, in that situation. Oh my goodness, what was that? As I was saying, when it comes to Vosh, I don't want to make needless accusations and all. So, why am I hearing that? Oh, heavens and purgatory. Why am I hearing? Okay, let me get back to what I was saying. I was saying, for some reason, I'm hearing horses. Oh well, that's where it's at right now. Are y'all hearing horses? I'm hearing horses. Why does I keep hearing horses when I mention Bosch's name? Okay. All right. That's enough of that. All right. Honestly, when it comes to Bosch, I mean, and I've said this from day one when I first heard of him. Was it 2020? It's going to be close to 4 years. I heard it three and a half years ago. And one of the earliest videos I saw was him and Nico House debating, and the video went nowhere. Other than he wouldn't let Nico House talk, kept interrupting Nico House, and what Nico House said, uh, you know, come true, come turned out to be true. Um, and I didn't really want him to be correct about that, but he basically, said the truth about Joe Biden. I was not intending to vote for Joe Biden anyway. Well, that's not true. I was almost guilt tripped into voting for Joe Biden by some of my more shit libby friends, but I when I was like, no, I can't do this because I know what to expect from Joe Biden will be what I expected from Barack Obama and my experience with the Bill Clinton presidency. In other words, more than the same. And I wasn't about to have that. If I'm going to vote for somebody, I'm going to vote for who I'm going to vote for people based on policy. Uh, Now, is there anything wrong with harm reduction? Um, I have never been hardcore for harm reduction. Am I an accelerationist? Um, at best, you can call me a modified accelerationist. I sort of sort of embrace both a moderate harm reduction, but also a moderate accelerationist approach. And how in the world can you be harm reductionist and accelerationist at the same time? Um, by harm reduction, I mean, I obviously don't want the worst of the right to win. So there were times I had to be pragmatic about this sort of thing. Now, I used to vote down the line Democrat and vote in third party for presidency. That's kind of how I used to do things. But in light of, even though I don't live in Pennsylvania, in light of how much John Fetterman is a letdown and how much the fraud became a letdown, and as much as Bernie Sanders managed to disappoint me, and just seeing examples of where the Democratic Party has kind of let down people like myself. It's I don't want to be a glutton for punishment. Is what it comes down to. Evidently, Vaush would rather be a glutton for punishment. So, what I'm going to do is this is from Onion Nuggets / Deep Fat Fried. It's the guys from Deep Fat Fried, Amazing Atheist, his younger brother Scotty, and Paul Paul's ego, talking about Vaush, and I'm going to. I'll go and give y'all my take on that as well, intermittently. So hold on and hold tight here. It's from the video called Vaush Goes Rad Live, Paul Salts the Earth. And here's the thing about that. Why don't they just use the term shit live? I guess you probably typing shit live might not be a good idea on YouTube. I don't know what the rules are in that, but we'll go ahead and play their video and I'll give you my take.
I would be totally fine with this being the last time we cover Vaush ever.
Onion nuggets.
And sure. I've been losing a lot of sleep over this recent news, you know.
What news is that?
I just am I gotta hold it together, dude. Honestly, I'm gonna cry.
Try.
I just hate to see international maritime trade interrupted. Oh, I'm sorry. These goddamned Houthis. These goddamn Houthis, man. As a socialist and an anti-capitalist, I got to tell you guys, dude, when international maritime trade gets disrupted, the fangs come out, you know? The fangs could look, there is a line.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, there is,
I mean, I can think of a million reasons why a radical leftist anti-capitalist should support America bombing a country to protect international maritime trade.
Okay, just to clarify the situation, if you haven't seen this video, basically what they're doing, they're making fun of Vaush because Vaush made a reference to international maritime trade in regard to the Houthis, in regard to the Red Sea situation, regarding the Israeli Gaza Strip crisis that's going on. So just to make that, they're basically making fun of an angle by Vaush, and I just wanted to have that clarified.
Oh, maritime trade! Think of the international maritime trade. Oh,
I'm thinking about it right now.
What are those billionaire oligarchs that own those big shipping containers full of consumer goods supposed to do? Oh God, no!
Oh, the only good Houthi is a dead Houthi. Massacre them all. I don't care how many innocent civilians you have to kill in the process.
Turn Yemen into a parking lot. These Houthis have gone too far. Vaush has a point. Paul just salty. Wow, you uprooted me, bro. Goddamn.
We're agreeing with Vaush.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Vaush. Yeah, what are you talking about?
Nothing is more important than international maritime trade, dude.
I love it, dude. Dude, my prediction that Vaush is just like a lib in sheep's clothing, dude, coming full circle in the last 6 weeks. Just blank.
Well, I could have said that back in 2020 when Vaush basically was proud of his Biden t-shirt and referred to himself as an anarcho-Bidenist. And I was just like, ooh, cringe. But anyway.
Hanging out. Like, let me give you guys an example since I'm having a VDS segment right now. Maybe we'll cover some Vaush later too. Like, I don't know, but let me give you guys an example. I'm going to explain some positions to you. There's this commentator who has a lot of positions that I really disagree with.
Okay.
Like anti-drug, pro-American intervention overseas, pro-bombing the Houthis, you know. It's pro pretty much any war project that America's got going. Anti-music, thinks music is a total waste of time and like a brain drain, you know. Who am I talking about? Rush Limbaugh or Vaush?
I mean,
why does the radical left sound like Rush Limbaugh from 15, 20 years ago?
Well, it's worse than that. I mean, you have basically people who were on the right 15 and 20 years ago who was the toast of Rush Limbaugh, now being praised by Rachel Maddow and Keith Olbermann and you know, Michelle Obama's dancing around with George W. Bush, and everybody's, you know, and you even have people like Rob Reiner praising Liz Cheney. I mean, this is what's come down to. And then you have to hear it from the right how the Democratic Party has turned radical left. And you even have some Democrats thinking, "Oh my God, we turned radical left." How in the hell can you turn radical left when you have, the public face of the Democratic Party, where they're talking about, politicians or media people or entertainers? They're sitting around and chilling with people who were the toast of Rush Limbaugh 15 years ago. I don't want any part of that. And so that's what's going on there. And so Paul is touching on a subject I have been wondering myself for quite a while. I mean, I know the answer to it, but and I think my audience knows the answer to it. In fact, I know so. But I'm glad that since Deep Fat Fried / Onion Nuggets is a bigger platform than mine, that this is carrying out to more people to ponder these questions.
Is what I'm asking everybody. Like, Vaush guys, I know you're out there in the chat. Can you explain to me why Vaush's takes are indistinguishable from Rush Limbaugh's takes? Vaush Limbaugh, dude. Vaush Limbaugh.
It's Vaush.
Gotta get my VDS segment out of the way. I know everybody wants it, so.
You know what? Maybe Paul can hold up against this one, but this might be a time Paul can just go, take a deep breath, be relaxed, and just get through this without getting triggered.
Yeah, maybe I'll agree with everything he has to say here.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, TJ. Oh, TJ left. You know what, Paul?
I'm here. I'm still here.
Oh, okay, I thought you left.
I'm just
maybe Paul. You've been uncharitable. You've been mean. You've been Vaush been mean to you for sure.
I've been bad faith.
So you're about to see quite a few minutes of Vaush's ridiculous takes on things, and all I have to tell you is basically brace yourself, because Vaush's takes is pretty damn ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Really? That sound again? Really? That sound? Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, heavens and murgatroyd. I should just behave myself. So let's get. Okay, there. We'll get back to that. To this right now.
Maybe this is the time if you fucking really listen, Paul. Clean your fucking ears out and hear what he has to say. You guys can find some common ground.
My dude. I am going to be good faith.
Yep.
I'm going to listen and respond directly to these arguments. Okay?
Look, Paul, you're a very emotional guy. Maybe that passion, emotion sometimes just takes you further down the road. And if you listen to the logic and the reason of these arguments, you will invariably see that Vaush is correct and this is the correct path.
My dude.
Paul,
I have. By the way, Paul, I've not done that song, but the reason I haven't done it is because I've thought about it too much, and it needs to be a spontaneous thing that just comes from the moment.
It does.
I mean, I could have done this whole I kept thinking about it too much. I was like, my dude, my guy, my dude, my dude, my guy, and it's just like, no, it's too.
Do you know you should do a Vaush cover of "Goodbye Horses"?
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
That Q Lazarus song that the Buffalo Bill listens to. When he tucks his junk back.
Okay.
The left is allergic to pragmatic, effective behavior.
Sorry, what was that? Did you guys hear that?
What was it?
In the background there?
No. Should I play it back? I'll go back.
I'm just hearing things.
The left is allergic to pragmatic, effective.
Was that a horse?
So you heard it too?
I mean, maybe.
Sorry.
Let's go back one more time.
I mean, we're trying to be in good faith here, but I'm confused.
Once more.
Me
The
too.
left is allergic to pragmatic, effective.
It's weird. It keeps. I feel like the horse comes in at a different.
Like a
every
slightly different time every time. It's very strange.
Strange horse. Nay.
I point out
The
though.
left is allergic to pragmatic, effective behavior. I literally saw a tweet just the other day with like 50K likes that was like, the ceasefire now crowd is failing the same lesson that the defund the police crowd failed. And I thought like, oh, okay, are we going to say we need like lower our standards, because I don't think like ceasefire now is that bad of a goal to argue for. And then it continued. We need to stop kowtowing to the establishment and bending over backwards. We need to stop watering down the message. The real message should be destroy Israel now. 50K likes or something. Like,
I mean, I wouldn't go so far as destroying it. Just move it to Wyoming.
Can I ask you a question?
Move it to Wyoming, or the answer after World War II was to take what was East Prussia, which is now the northern part of Poland, and declare that a Jewish state. Or maybe if you got to have something in Palestine, I'll be pragmatic enough to say that a democratic, secular successor to the state of Israel as it currently exists, like maybe a binational federation of sorts, or just a new country to succeed the state of Israel that has a constitution that will protect the Palestinians and protect the Jewish people, that it will be both a binational state, a state with both people living there with their traditions accepted and under a secular government that neither favors one group over the other. That would be probably ideal, the most ideal. That would be the ultimate ideal in my view. However, even a two-state solution that's been talked about to death for many years, if there was something workable. But what's going to happen, even with that particular situation, Netanyahu and the right wings got to be defeated by the Israeli people. That were to happen. And Hamas didn't even need to be an issue, but that was the George W. Bush administration pressuring Israel and the Palestinian authorities, the whole elections in Gaza. So, and you had what was an open air prison, and it allowed Hamas to be legitimized. I blame George W. Bush for this situation, by the way. I do. And I do not want anybody from any side disappearing or dying or what have you. So that's kind of my take on it. Is probably not the most radical take on those who are critical, but it's also not a Washington consensus take either. Basically, I just want people to I just want everybody to chill and I want the madness to stop. And a ceasefire at its most is at the most basic level. It's a moderate position, but somehow the country, the United States, our politicians, certain movements like evangelical Christians think that a ceasefire is somehow a jihadist style movement. How the hell is a ceasefire? The definition of a ceasefire is that nobody is killing each other. A ceasefire, that means that means Hamas is not doing anything to Israel. It means Israel is not doing anything to Hamas. This is what a ceasefire is. But if you favor a ceasefire, people sitting there calling you an anti-Semite or calling you, what kind of, whatever ad hominem attacks there is, it's ridiculous. And so, this, what Vaush saying here is a little bit alarming. And because Vaush also was against the pullout of the U.S. troops from Afghanistan back in 21 as well. I just wanted to go and point that out as well.
Question, bro? Because
you're
way more you, TJ. I guess Scotty too, but I know Scotty's not a social media guy. So I'm asking you, why do these motherfuckers care like what gets likes on Twitter? Like why is Twitter this dude's barometer on politics and life?
As a Twitter addict,
yeah,
and as a Vaush watcher, and as for some reason, even though I know for a fact that Twitter is not really all that reflective of reality, when I'm on Twitter, I'm convinced that it is reality.
That's the weird thing that you saying that confirms my suspicion that it's like an alternate reality game over there, right? Yeah. It's like a place where you and everybody else can pretend that their opinions on shit has super dense, like realistic weight in the world.
Yeah, and the more hearts you get, the more powerful your opinion becomes.
And when something really you don't disagree with gets a lot of hearts, it's like, we got to make a video about this right now. You know, what a weird little subculture.
I think it's just questioning, like, why would this idea even have any influence? Like, I think it's like the shock of.
I also think it's suspicious that he's not showing the tweet itself, because
why would anybody like have like animosity towards Israel? I can't imagine.
Well, not only that, but like, if the tweet really says what he's, maybe he'll show it later. I don't know. I haven't watched the whole thing.
Yeah, perhaps.
But if the tweet really said something that incendiary, and this whole video is prompted on, like, I'm going to react to that, like, why not show us that tweet? Like, did it really say that exactly in those terms, or was there something more nuanced?
Well, it may be mild defensive, Vaush. I have ran across things on the internet, on Twitter, that I couldn't find, but I saw at the time, thought, that was interesting, and it will come up to mind. So I don't know if that's so super unusual or even consider sus on Vaush's part. And I'm critical of Vaush, but I ran across things that I couldn't exactly find it. Again, I was just like, oh, if I could just find this tweet or find this page or find the channel or the video clip, and I can't find it again, and I was like, well, damn, well, I might as well just kind of mention it. So I can understand that for anybody, you know, referencing, if they can't find the actual article or tweet or video clip or have you, I'm not going to hold that against them, although I'm going to hold a lot of other things against them in this video. So anyway,
nuance to it. I mean, like, without seeing the tweet itself, it's kind of hard to say, but I don't know.
Like, yeah, go out there and protest, destroy Israel, or like end Israel or whatever. You see, yeah, incredibly effective political messaging that's going to get you far. 50K likes, most.
Well, apparently it did get him far, because it got him 50K likes, right? So
yeah, and it got him featured in a Vaush video. Look at how far-reaching this opinion was.
It's a social media game. Social media game is get attention. That's what Vaush is doing here by responding to it. So it's like, say, why would someone make an incendiary statement, an outrageous statement? It's like to get you to respond to it, to get people to talk about it.
It's over the phone to save their life. So I don't know. I do hate it here. You know, I do hate it here. I think that in terms of like trying to get good people elected or trying to stop bad people from getting elected, the only people that are really worth your time are liberals. You can move like the left, the young left vote, and I'm not saying leftists don't vote.
Oh, hold on a minute, Buster. Liberals, just elect liberals. This is the meat and potatoes of where I have a problem with Vaush right here. If there's anything, and I have some deep issues when it comes to Vaush, but just listen to this shit he's about ready to. Just listen to the diarrhea that's about to come out of this guy's mouth.
Vote at all or don't participate at all, but they need to get dragged along by the actual.
Yes, Paul?
Paul?
Did he just say what I heard?
Here, I'll play it again for you. This was, by the way, the moment I knew, I'm like, I'm pulling this for Paul for sure.
Destroy Israel now. 50K likes or something. Like yeah, go out there and protest, destroy Israel, or like end Israel or whatever. And you see, yeah, incredibly effective political messaging that's going to get you far. 50K likes, most of which I assume are from teenager and people who couldn't order a pizza over the phone to save their life. So I don't know. I do hate it here. You know, I do hate it here. I think that in terms of like trying to get good people elected or trying to stop bad people from getting elected, the only people that are really worth your time are liberals. You can move like the left, the young left vote, and I'm not saying leftists don't vote at all or don't participate at all, but they need to get dragged along by the actual power group.
Was drag like
Paul's trying to even process this shit. Like, I can see the gears just a turning and Paul's.
Is this like a meme? Is he going to be like, just kidding, guys, in a second? Or is his opinion is the only people that it's worth your time to politically advocate for are the Hillary Clinton liberals? Is that what
in terms of like trying to get good people elected or trying to stop bad people from getting elected? The only people that are really worth your time are liberals.
What Vaush just said sounds very similar to what I used to hear when I was in college. When I was in the College Democrats, I used to hear, the only difference is in the year 2024 as opposed to the year 1994 is that he uses the word, he's charitable of using the word liberal, whereas maybe in some cases we have moved along a little bit better forward, because today you can say liberal, even though the right wing uses that term in a bad way. You can still say liberal within the Democratic Party is kind of accepted. I guess maybe in that area it has improved. However, well, in the words of Thomas Salisbury from Tommy Nation Politics, as he was talking, good friend Tommy talking to my other good friend Warren from Extra Boya Live, what they were saying one day about the shit libs. And I like what Tommy said. And basically, why can't the shit libs just stop being shit libs and be just liberal again? And that's the crux of the problem right there. I'm not a Bill Maher fan, but Bill Maher one time correctly pointed out that, in other countries, it's not a big deal to be called a socialist. But here, and this was 20 years ago, and probably until the time Obama got elected, that if you go around and somebody call you a liberal, a politician would just put on their hunting vest. A Democratic politician would put on their hunting vest and get an elephant gun and go out and start shooting shit in the woods to show, I ain't no liberal. Look at me. I go hunting, to try to make themselves relatable to I don't like that term, but I want to use it to America over what is called flyover country. I don't like that term, but I'm using it as a kind of a reference here to make a point.
You can move like the left, the young left vote, and I'm not saying leftists don't vote at all or don't participate.
Let me ask you a question. Rather than do what I normally do, what is the charitable interpretation of this take?
I honestly,
because what
idea.
My instinct is to immediately go like, well, that vindicates me, because I'm on record 3 years ago saying I feel like Vaush is like pipelining radical leftists into liberalism, and I feel like he just kind of did that, right?
Paul, follow your instincts on this one. Just go ahead.
Pragmatically, Paul.
I think you just need
the most likely candidate to win.
Remember what your doctor ordered, Paul. Remember what your doctor ordered.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't like being right about shit like this. I really don't, because I know there's a lot of young people that look up to this dude, but he is indistinguishable on a number of really important issues from Rush Limbaugh, dude.
Trump would be worse.
This type of shit is so far outside of the socialist paradigm or the revolutionary paradigm. This is just straight up like, let's make the same mistakes our parents did.
Absolutely. And I like what you said, Paul, about the revolutionary paradigm, the socialist paradigm, because, even in terms of my personal politics, put my personal politics aside, Vaush would be considered. Some people would say, oh, he's really radical left because, he's this kind of a Marxist type with a libertarian socialist sensibility. And in some ways, I do consider myself a libertarian socialist. But the thing about it is that he takes what is called harms reductionism and fully embraces it while pretending to be revolutionary. And, harm reduction in itself with nothing to offer to make sure that harm reduction has substance to it always bounces back to the country moving further to the right, because you have the people who've been elected and sometimes they promise to do shit for people. Joe Biden and the Democrats promise to do things for the American people and have done little to nothing. And when you do little to nothing, when liberals do next to nothing, you end up with the Republicans taking over again. Now, what I mean by that is basically this, that Liberals will do next to nothing to meaningfully change the lives of people. But what liberals will do, or Democrats would do, is will go and overreach in a way that's annoying to people, or and sometimes they're just like, oh, I don't want any of this shit, because they're too scared. In other words, they're scared to be called socialists if they go and work on Medicare for all. Now, Medicare for all, what would it do? People can interpret Medicare for all in many different ways. My idea of Medicare for all would be to eliminate not just the insurance companies, but to have a national insurance system with nationalized pharmacies and a governmental takeover of hospitals and medical entities, and kind of make it kind of like the National Health Service in the UK, or to be more controversial for the real normies out there, scared by radical left rhetoric, to make it like the Cuban system. In other words, have real socialized medicine. And where are the two countries today that has basically a different type of government that has in effect the same kind of healthcare system? You have communist Cuba, which I endorse their healthcare system. You have capitalist Great Britain, and I endorse their healthcare system. Both healthcare systems are essentially the same. When people say, well, Canada's got socialized medicine, and France got socialized medicine, and Sweden, and Germany, and Luxembourg, and Belgium, universal healthcare systems have different approaches to the way they do things. A lot of people just thought we became a socialist country under Obamacare. Obamacare is something that's close to the way things are done in Ireland, Germany, Belgium, and Netherlands, however, and Australia. But what Obamacare doesn't do is it's not as public and it's not as generous. Now, if you had a public option, and I'm sorry I'm going into the healthcare thing, I have to kind of say my take on healthcare, how you do healthcare. But the point I'm trying to make is, you had a public option added to Obamacare, the healthcare system would be universal. It will look more like the German system. It will look more like the Dutch system, that sort of thing. I don't particularly care for that approach. I'm a socialist. I believe you have to, when you go and take on something like healthcare, you got to go and take it on with a socialist approach, not incrementalism, and certainly not the incrementalism that's offered by Barack Obama and Democrats in general. But the point I'm trying to make is, Obamacare was kind of an overreach in a lot of ways, forcing people to buy their own private health insurance versus, a national insurance system, either like Canada, which is basically like our Medicare system, if it was expanded over the whole population, or the actual socialist approach, the NHS, like they have in Great Britain. You pay a national tax, and you go and present your card to the doctor's office or the hospital, what have you, and you're taken care of. They're scared to be called socialists for going with the Canadian plan or the UK plan, so they decide they're going to go and try a wishy-washy plan that's complicated and overreaches. And this is the kind of thing that gets Republicans elected. And the Democrats fall for that trick every time, is what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. I'm just basically meandering on and on and on. So we'll get to the meat and potatoes of this topic.
And I don't know how I could charitably interpret this. Like, if maybe there's something, like, I know what'll be claimed, that I'm taking them out of context, or that I'm not. So maybe we should listen to a little bit more. But
yeah, we can hear more.
At all, but they need to get dragged along by the actual power group, and that's liberals. When it comes to like ideological activism, the left is
Vaush, no. We don't need to be dragged by the liberals. The liberals need to be listening to the left. The conservatives need to be listening to the left. The terms of what we want should be on explicitly left-wing terms, not the term of the way it is in the status quo. What you're asking for and demanding is what we have currently. It's not working.
left is a little bit more useful, but when it comes to anything even remotely tied to
okay, so like you basically like Paul, you're the pipe dream, but when it comes down pragmatically, the liberals are the ones who control the Democratic Party. They're the only viable option because Trump is basically fascism or a pipeline to fascism, or, or at very least just a terrible presidency. Like it's gonna draw us even closer to the precipice of destruction. So basically, like you're allowed to do that ideologically, but pragmatically, you're not going to win. Is what he's saying. You're not going to win. Your ideas are bad.
Right. Don't waste any time in the real world with any kind of revolutionary ideas. Just suck it. Like it's basically the same.
Yeah, we can have an academic debate or discussion about it, but that's
right. But when it comes to actual action in the world, you need to do everything you can to vote for liberals and nobody else.
For the actual power.
Not only vote for liberals, but once the liberals are elected, don't challenge them. Do not hold them accountable. Do not hold their feet to the fire. And that's the Vaush approach. And even that, I'm even more opposed to, that than just merely voting for liberals. Now, if you're going to vote for liberals and you're going to hold their feet to the fire, that's what you need to do. And Vaush pretend, oh well, we get Biden in power, we'll pressure him and we will bully him into doing what we want him to do. But Vaush, you don't practice what you preach. I mean, you basically call Brianna Joy Gray a subhuman piece of shit for supporting forced to vote. You call Jimmy Dore essentially a Republican that's cheap herding radical energy into that party. And that's not true about Jimmy Dore. I have some disagreements with Jimmy Dore occasionally, and sometimes he takes some positions. I'm like, what the hell? But at the same time, Jimmy Dore's offering a radical solution. What Jimmy Dore is an accelerationist. And what you are, Vaush, is a harm reductionist. And given my choice between accelerationism and harm reduction, considering how much our society has suffered since Ronald Reagan became president in 1980, and I argued that Joe Biden is the 11th term of the Reagan presidency, I'm more keen to adopt the Jimmy Dore, if you will, the Jimmy Dore, Glenn Greenwald, gray zone left worldview of things than the TYT, Sam Cedar, Vaush, and David Pakman worldview. So that's where I stand.
Power block.
Even if there's a third party candidate that's way closer to you,
well, then you're going to spoil the chance of that person because the election's so close. If you do that, you ensure the other side, who is bad, is going to win. So you can't.
He's talking about voters, not politicians. He said liberals. They're liberal politicians. They're not like super liberals or something.
He's saying, yeah. Well, you can go back.
He's saying the entirety of the power structure, which is overseen by the politicians. I'm not misinterpreting this. I don't think. I'm listening to what he said. I heard what he said. This seems pretty on brand for me, although it also feels like he's saying the quiet part out loud really hard, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, is he going to go like
this has been Vaush's position? I mean, I
right, but he's never like just explicitly been like.
This isn't a revelation to me at all.
The only thing politically worth your time is just cyclical voting for liberals. That's
what we advocated on this same show for hours.
Right, but he didn't say it explicitly. He tried to dress it up with all of this like fascism is around the corner, my dude.
To me, it's like splitting hairs because I've always thought this is Vaush's position since I've heard him. I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying, like, to me, it's obvious.
So he's like baby's first leftist. I don't know. Like, he's just out there like draping himself in the aesthetics of revolutionary leftism, but ultimately just funneling people into the Hillary Clinton mire. Is that what's going on? Am I wrong? Like, I don't know. I'm willing to be challenged. I'm looking in the chat.
I mean, he does distinguish that he does. I mean, like, I don't think he dismisses it entirely, but for all intents and purposes, practically, he does. He does say it's like, well, it's not going to happen. That's not what the power base of the party is. That's not who's going to win elections. So even discussing that or trying to boost those people up is a waste of time because they're not going to win.
And amazing as he is, Scotty's correct. It was Scotty, sorry, saying that. What he said was correct about Vaush claiming all this is a waste of time and all of that. To paraphrase him, all just academic and all. Because the party is not ready, basically, to adopt these things. Well, the party's not ready to adopt these things. You have to go and find it so where you need to find alternatives. And so as I said, going back to Breonna Joy Gray, when she and Vaush were debating, and they were talking about third party activism versus working within the Democratic Party, without question. I took her approach that, that when you go and vote, you're not necessarily voting because you know that your guy is going to win. Although, her strategic vote for, let's say, Jill Stein in 2016, and presumably, I think she voted for Howie Hawkins in 2020. I know she didn't vote for Biden. She voted third party. Her third party vote translated into not just giving a message to the Democratic Party, but also creating that alternative where if you're at third party is strong enough, let's say the Green Party, for example, that's the best example right now in America. You reach over 5% of the national vote, you get federal funding, which makes that third party more relevant in American society. And so you're basically building on creating a third party movement that's going to be successful down the road to being a large third party, or, hopefully a major party. Just as and I'm using these cases, even though these parties eventually went on the wayside, and as far as what they were initially, but there's a book in 1985 by Eric Chester called Socialists in the Ballot Box. I highly recommend that. And basically, it argued against someone like a Vaush, who would talk about, supporting liberals, supporting the two-party system, and why you need to go and actively work outside the two-party and find alternatives to creating a political party outside the two-party system. And in the book, it talked about the two countries he mentioned. For the most part, it was Canada and the UK. There was talk at one time about trade unionists and leftist types working inside the Liberal Party in England or the Liberal Party in Canada. Well, they decided that doesn't work. So, in the UK in the late 1800s, the Labor Representation Committee, I think it was founded in 1900. And in the 1906, the Labor Representation Committee became what is known today as the British Labour Party, which was a coalition of trade unionists, socialists from the Fabian Society, and social reformers that created a political party that was supposed to supplant, and it did supplant, the Liberal Party in 1945 and brought about the welfare state and the NHS and everything. It's just too bad that the Labor Party eventually embraced Tony Blair and this clown right now, Keir Starmer. And how much they fucked over Jeremy Corbyn in the same way that the Democrats, which was never a socialist party, managed to go and fuck Bernie Sanders over. But or in Canada, where again you have socialists and farmer and labor activists and social reformers, in 1932 founding the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, which is known today as the New Democratic Party, that created as an alternative to both the Liberals and the Tories, and is a pretty strong third party in Canada these days. So that is what I think we need to do here. We need to create something like that here. We do not need to go and continue on something that's failed. It's like what Craig Pastor-Jardula and Fiorella Isabel said from the combo couch, that the Democratic Party is where progressive ideas go to die, and they're correct.
Action.
So agree with me on this topic. You're not a leftist. You're Rush Limbaugh. I pointed out several positions that Vaush has taken, and not like old. I don't want to be accused of like combing through old edgy Vaush stuff. This is like in the last couple of weeks. Vaush has come out as anti-drug, and you shouldn't never trust a drug abuser or user. He's done this now, which like if you understand anything about.
I'm pretty drug-free today, but I mean, it's because I just don't have the energy and time to find anything illegal. I'm not against it. and I don't look down on people who likes to party down and everything. In fact, I have said the day that they legalized marijuana in North Carolina is the day that I will go and buy me some cannabis to make cannabis lasagna. That day will happen.
About American politics, you realize that liberals and neocons are really not that far apart on most issues. He's pro-war, super into the Houthi bombing shit going on. Like I know Rush would have been as well.
And Rush would have been. Vaush is sounding like Rush Limbaugh 15 years ago. That can't be disputed.
Like I'm not conflating him with Rush Limbaugh baselessly. I'm pointing out some pretty big conservative positions that Vaush seems to parrot. So if you want to like defeat that argument, you're going to have to go back and say Rush Limbaugh never said that, or Vaush means it differently, and explain him how.
How about this? Can you think of a living person analog on the right that you can compare? Because I mean, I think with Rush, you're always going to get, well, Rush is dead. Who knows what the
okay? Well, I say Rush because he was the big, but like Tucker.
Okay, Tucker.
Tucker would be anti-weed. Tucker would be pro-Houthi bombing. Tucker's a traditional neocon.
And I'm going to have to correct Paul here. I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson, but Tucker Carlson is not a neocon. I think I don't know what his position is on marijuana, but he seems to be, on the anti-war side of the equation mostly these days, and have been so since 2005. He was one of the first prominent conservatives to oppose the Iraq War. I mean, he initially supported it, but unlike Sean Hannity or Mark Levin, who think that we should go back into Iraq and relive the Bush-Cheney doctrine, he's been pretty damn critical of the U.S. military-industrial complex and what the U.S. is doing abroad and everything. And, I don't know if he's grifting per se, but of all the conservative commentators out there, Tucker Carlson, at least for the most part, has foreign policy analysis more on the correct side than not. And that's not to praise Tucker Carlson, but it's to say that a stop clock does get the right time twice a day. But he would not be classified as a neocon. Tucker Carlson is more what you'll call a paleocon. That's probably a more accurate description, if you will. A softer Pat Buchanan, I would say. We'll let them continue.
Mouthpiece. And I don't know like how you reconcile hearing a point come out of your radical leftist streamer that could have came out of the mouth of Tucker Carlson on a normal night, on a Wednesday night on his show. I gotta
again, and I should have let it continue. Tucker Carlson is better when he talks about foreign policy. Now, when he talks about the great replacement theory, he can fuck off. Talking about Tucker Carlson and all of that. And again, I think maybe the anti-war talk from Tucker is a grift. Maybe talking about the great replacement theory, because that's people on Fox News love to talk about the great replacement theory, because they think that they are threatened by what is called I will put it this way: the tanning of America. They seem very threatened by it. So, and there's no basis to feel threatened by it, but that's what they like to do, or they know where the anxiety is, where a lot of right-leaning people are in the United States. And rather than to tell them the truth, which is not negative, they want to go and create a panic amongst America's right wing regarding Fox News. And, so I just think it comes with the territory working for Fox News. What Tucker did in terms of the great replacement theory. As far as allowing him to talk anti-war, I think that was basically a product of what happened with the Trump presidency, because he was rhetorically rhetorically correct on being anti-war, but let's face it, Trump did some very neocon war criminal things while he was president too. We're talking about some bombings in Syria. We're talking about the slaying of a general Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad with a drone strike that killed the man. We're talking about the increased drone attacks, and the drone attacks is being used by everybody. They seem to be all for it these days, because when you do drone attacks, it's a way to boycott, or not boycott, to avoid, that's the word, avoid having to avoid ground troops. Although there's some people that will still argue for ground troops.
I guess you could say, from charitable, Paul, you probably had some takes that agree with Tucker Carlson. There's probably takes you have that if we played it, I mean, you'd probably, let's say Tucker said he was pro-union. I mean, I can imagine you saying Tucker's wrong,
I hear some Republicans types talk about being pro-workers lately, and they try this populist right talk. But I don't know if it's how true it is that Tucker Carlson's pro-union. Does he support abolishing right-to-work laws? And to me, I always had a problem with the term populist right, because it seems like they still want the same old Reaganism, and populism usually just means, Disney corporations grooming kids, and that's their thing. So we're going to go and be anti-corporate by attacking liberal-leaning corporations that we don't like, and we'll show them, but still overall offer the same old Reaganomics to the American public. That's not being populist in my view. Now, I think that maybe in Europe and in Latin America, you can find pockets of populist right-wing sentiment that may make some type of overtures, but they still are largely wrong due to, and I'm going to be charitable, there's at best their social conservatism, and worst case scenario, just outright ugly fascism. So anyway, continue.
I guess you can say insincere, but if Tucker espoused the same, so if we're trying to be charitable to Vaush, we could say maybe if we took one of your takes in that, at least with some reasonable amount of context, you agree with Tucker. There's probably some issues you guys agree on.
I'd be hard.
Well, Tucker Carlson is correct on Julian Assange. That I will say, and I have something to say about Julian Assange in a few minutes here.
For us to think of a social issue or a political issue that Tucker and I in total lock, like a contentious issue. Like drug use is usually pretty contentious, and it's pretty right wing to demonize drug use and drug users and to fear monger about drug use.
I mean, we see that with Fox News covering, San Francisco and other cities on the West Coast. Like, they're just homeless.
To treat all drug indulgers as a monolith, is pretty right wing, and that's exactly what Vaush did. I'm not being uncharitable. Vaush has labeled anybody that takes, the impossible standard, the inscrutable standard of when does drug use become habitual? That's the only qualifier he used was habitual drug use. You can drink a drink once a month and be a habitual drinker. If you have a habit of drinking once a month, you're habitual. So where's the line on that?
I guess it's a distinction of what are you considering a drug and what do you, you're talking about drugs taking over someone's life. That's a health problem. Of course, that's not good for somebody.
It just ignores the history of drug users being some of the most innovative scientists, artists, politicians, public speakers, comedians.
Well, that's recreational drug use. Obviously there's a distinction between someone who's
a lot of
habitual
drug addicts on the list of people I just mentioned. A lot.
Of course.
Yeah, and Vaush talking about being critical of people who recreationally indulge or what have you, and trying to be self-righteous. Look, if you want to be a teetotaler, Vaush, that's fine. But doesn't make you superior to other folks because you decided to be a teetotaler when it comes to casual usage of drugs. Most people, there's a lot of people who are recreational drug users that do live fully productive lives and all that. And I'm sure you can find there are bad examples of drug usage, but there are people who are sober who are fuck ups with their lives too. So, I mean, to sit there and to just say, well, the drugs are the reason people are this way. I mean, that's just disingenuous. Really, it is. I mean, it depends on the individual. You have people who are sober who are fuck ups. You have people who are sober who are brilliant and fully productive and very successful. Same with regard to casual drug users. You got some, you're going to find some who are fuck ups. You're going to find some who are, well adjusted members of society that live stable lives and do moderately well or do extremely well. It all comes down to the individual.
Of course.
A lot of so like it just ignores reality. It's a total Republican talking point, and it's coming out of Vaush, and he's being confronted about it, and he's doubling down on it.
Debating whether or not to jump ship, as it seems to be going the way of the SDS. Soaked on Left has made the argument that like if enough Vaushites join the DSA, it can be shifted over. But I genuinely wonder whether or not it's worth the effort, or if it'd be better to just let the DSA float off into irrelevance and wait and just like.
I'm socialist. Wonder if it's worth the effort to direct my growing fan base to join socialist organizations, or just to let them die.
Because the DSA are worse than liberal. Like most leftist groups are worse than liberals.
Huh? Wait a minute.
Yeah. DSA is there's actual problems with DSA. I'm not a stranger to DSA. I have been a member of DSA in the past, and there's a lot of good they have done. They have a very good activist base. They have some things they need to adjust, but to hear Vaush say that DSA is worse than the liberals. The only thing that there may be some truth to it in that regard is that DSA relies strictly too much on voting for the Democratic Party. Exactly what Vaush would advocate, by the way. Same thing with the CPUSA, the Communist Party USA, and I believe Committees of Correspondence sort of operates that way too. The CCDS. They all are good, loyal foot soldiers to the Democratic Party that says things that your leftists could agree with, except for go and follow the Democrats. And that's been one of the reasons why I have not renewed my membership into DSA, because they'll say a lot of good things. They were the ones that came up with the idea of forced to vote, by the way. I want to go make that clear too. It wasn't Jimmy Dore that decided, hey, let's go and hold Nancy Pelosi's seat hostage, and let's go make sure that we mean business, and telling her that you don't allow a House vote on Medicare for all. That the small group of leftists in the Congress is going to go and vote down against Nancy Pelosi, which will eventually mean that Hakeem Jeffries will become Speaker of the House, which is exactly what happened eventually. But you had fairly intelligent people that were fearful that Kevin McCarthy, who eventually became Speaker of the House, would become Speaker of the House. So, and again, you have people out there, your Sam Cedars and your Cenk Uygurs that had the shit wrong about the idea that just means that Kevin McCarthy would be Speaker of the House if we did force a vote. Didn't mean no such a thing. But you know what? Speaking of Kevin McCarthy, as much as I can't stand the players within the anti-freedom caucus in the House, and the anti-freedom caucus are, right-wing Republican members of the U.S. House. They're sort of the equivalent. They're sort of the right-wing equivalent to the Squad. They instituted forced to vote because they knew what it meant. They study. They saw all of us bickering over it. I don't mean me, but they saw a lot of the big wigs within the online left squabbling over this stuff in 2021, and they were like, "Well, maybe this shit can work." And they tried it. It was a success. Not only was it a success for the right wing, you had some corporatist, centrist, Democrat morons like Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema do the same damn thing, which is why we don't have Build Back Better. So, what does all this mean? It means that Vaush It's wrong.
We're talking about the Democratic Socialists of America, right?
Yes.
They're worse than liberals. They're worse than the liberals that wrote the crime bill that put a generation of black men in prison. They're worse than the liberals that continued and expanded the wars in the Middle East. They're worse than the liberals that are hand in glove corporate K Street sellouts, just like the Republicans. They're worse than that. The DSA
deserves criticism, but not the kind of criticism Vaush is shoveling at DSA.
Apparently, according to Vaush,
the Democratic Socialists of America is the largest socialist organization in the United States with over 92,000 members and chapters in all 50 states. We believe that working people should run both the economy and society democratically to meet human needs, not to make profits for a few.
Poppycock.
Wow, what a total bunch of hogwash. I can see why Vaush is disavowing. Like,
how will this affect multinational trade if these so-called laborers get a bigger slice of the pie? I say negatively for the business class.
Actually, like, on which there are fulcrum issues in the United States, most of them orient around like progressive issues or basic economic liberal, like, you know, welfare shit. And liberals tend to be on the same side as the left on that. The only difference is that the left is less effective. Like, what answers are you going to get out of a DSA?
Liberals? Wait a minute. When's the last time a liberal seriously addressed an economic issue in this country? I'll wait.
Yeah, and let me add context to this. You want to know why we can't have labor law reform or Medicare for all, or mandated paid vacation time, or things like that, that, you know, other countries in the West tend to enjoy and take for granted. It's because the liberals are too scared to advocate for these things, the modern liberal. I'm going to give everybody a history lesson here that everybody's probably heard out of my mouth a million times, but it needs to be emphasized. In 1984, in 1972, when George McGovern was defeated in a 49-state landslide, Richard Nixon basically wiped the floor with George McGovern. And in 1984, same thing with Walter Mondale. Ronald Reagan wiped the floor with Walter Mondale. And Walter Mondale and George McGovern were decent men, by the way. When that happened, in 1985, a bunch of Democrats got together thinking, you know, I don't think we're going to ever have another Democrat president in the White House again. We need to go and make sure this never happens. So they founded a group called the Democratic Leadership Council. And the Democratic Leadership Council basically absorbed themselves into now the Clinton Foundation. It's now part of the Clinton Foundation. But the Democratic Leadership Council, their idea was maybe we should stop, listening to these pesky old labor unions and all of that. In other words, they decided to take a turn to the right on economics and adopt a modified version of Reaganism, Reaganomics. It was the beginning of the third wave movement. In the UK, they did the same thing with Tony Blair. It was called New Labour. They were called New Democrats here in the United States. The bad kind of New Democrats, as opposed to the good kind of New Democrats in Canada, the New Democratic Party. And I remember reading up on DLC, Democratic Leadership website, about the Canadian election, and they were praising the Liberal Party, and then they talk about the New Democratic Party, which is a party that they disavow. They're talking about the Democratic Leadership Council. So in that regard, the group New Democrats in the United States is meant to be something negative if you're on the left. Bill and Hillary Clinton took over the DLC and made it go further right than what they planned. And in essence, the DLC Reaganized the Democratic Party and had the Democratic Party so cut of its New Deal background that they will, they talk about FDR, they talk about them, basically in they basically talk about them. What's the term? They platitudes. That's the term. Platitudes. They use platitudes to describe the legacy of FDR, what have you. But they would be too scared and to implement something like a New Deal or the Great Society. The Democratic Party has gotten so far to the right that they are basically, Richard Nixon would be to the left of the modern Democrat today. Doesn't mean that Nixon was a great man, but the country has gone so far to the right that Richard Nixon in 1972 would be not Bernie Sanders, but maybe hover around being an Elizabeth Warren type today. That's where the Democratic Party is. And the DLC is the reason why it's that way. And it's why I disavow the DLC. And anyway, I'll let Vaush continue and the guys from Onion Nuggets / DFAT Fried.
Where's this idea that liberals and leftists are close together on economic issues? Can I get an example of that, please? Would it be like when Glass-Steagall was completely and utterly eradicated under a Democratic presidency? Would that be an example of the liberals being better to go to on, like, when is this? When I brought up economics during our argument, this dude poo-pooed my whole economic argument as if it doesn't matter. The only thing that mattered to this dude was fascism is coming, my guy. A bunch of fear-mongering and a bullshit like, I think there's a 30% chance there'll never be another election again, based on what? I don't know.
The thing about the fascism thing, fascism is something to take seriously. You got that to worry about from the Republican Party. They went from being just an annoying center-right party in the 1980s to flirting with fascism today. Jesse Kelly, who's a right-wing talk show host, talked about, the fascists will take over the Republican Party, blah, blah, blah. And we'll end up having, because of Black Lives Matter and Antifa and Joe Biden's laptop. I mean, just as if you can connect Joe Biden with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, really, and my only problem with Black Lives Matter is they've been bought and paid for by the liberal establishment. I mean, they're not a militant organization anymore, trying to, they may be trying to do away with police brutality, but they kind of been bought off. Not every BML person, not every BML chapter, but the right wing has been allowed to vilify BML in ways that it's cartoonish and over the tops. And the same thing with Antifa, which Antifa is definitely not connected to the Democratic Party or mainstream liberalism. Although there are people out there that will swear, just like the right wing swearing that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq in 2003. It's the same mindset. Barack Obama was born in Kenya. That mindset, that the 2020 election was stolen. I mean, this mindset of pedophile Democrats. This mindset of Nancy Pelosi made some phone calls to Antifa, and they dressed up as MAGA Trump supporters on January 6th, just to make those people look bad at the Stop the Steal rally, as if you need any help with the right wing at these chuds to make them look bad. These right wingers, to make them look bad, as if they need any help, as if people who basically get an orgasm off of the idea of Marjorie Taylor Greene being a congresswoman from I believe was the 14th district of Northwest Georgia, that these people need help in looking bad. They don't need any help in looking bad. Anyway, there are people out there that believe that Nancy Pelosi made phone calls to go and have people dress up as Trump supporters to go and do the break-in into the U.S. House of Representatives. I mean, there's a lot of stupid people out there that believe this sort of thing.
Could happen. I mean,
once the DSA, once a socialist organization in America to die.
But we're on a road. Basically, I forgot to mention this. We're on a bipartisan road toward fascism because the Democratic Party offered a fascism that's not necessarily, it's not racist, it's not homophobic or anything like that. And incorporate certain aspects of liberalism. But it's just generically totalitarian. There's no left-wing ideology. They're not a bunch of communists and taking over the party or what have you. It's just a bunch of liberals that learned some lessons from the mild authoritarianism that came out of the Reagan-Bush presidency between 1981 and 1993, January 81, January 93. And they took lessons from that. And anyway, I needed to mention that point as well.
I mean, look, in Vaush's defense, I mean, Trump could herald fascism. That is a possibility.
Yeah, a giant ass could descend from the boundless reaches of space,
that is
crush the world with
is
sweaty butt cheeks.
That is a fantastical scenario, Paul.
Could happen, Scotty.
It is possible, but far more likely, Donald Trump is the president, as presumed nominee of the Republican Party, could very well be elected as head in the polls.
Giant sweaty ass.
Could deliver fascism. See, Paul has no answer to this. He has no answer to this. Thank you.
Viable that you wouldn't get by talking to your average, like, Midwestern Democrat, you know? In most cases, not much. The DSA can offer you maybe more in terms of like analysis or theory or whatever.
So basically, they're just out of lockstep with the country.
Actually going out there and doing or changing anything. In a lot of cases,
if you actually talk to people in these other states and other parts of the nation, besides like coastal elites, it's totally out of sync. So if you actually,
here's the thing: there needs to be more than an analysis from DSA. Now, the only case that Vaush could make for the Democrats, if the Democrats around the country were like the Democrats in Minnesota, where you can make an argument that what the Democrats did in Minnesota to basically turn Minnesota into Norway or Sweden as much as it can be under our American system. They managed to do just that. Kind of like what Wisconsin did in the late 19th, early 20th century, the progressive tradition of Wisconsin. They did that. They're starting to do things like that in Minnesota. But here's the thing. What they're doing in Minnesota, the Democratic Party is not doing elsewhere. So it's great what they're doing. I mean, in Vermont, they did a lot of great things in spite of what Ronald Reagan, in spite of the Reagan consensus in the 1980s, just because of Bernie Sanders being mayor of Burlington, he managed to transform the ideology of that state. But here's the thing. What about the rest of the country? We just can't sit there and let one state or two states do awesome things, awesome progressive things, while the rest of the country, you have Democrats who are too tepid. You need to go and force their hand. You need to do things like force the vote, more of that. You need to do things like, threaten the Democrats with a third party, or have sit-ins and, follow these people around like they did with Kirsten Sinema, that she was getting annoyed by all these people following her around, asking her questions. You need more of that. You need more things like force the vote. You need more things like, I would say general strike as much as it can be, as much as you can push a general strike and make it successful. You need to do these things. These things, it requires militant actions. And if we're going to be tepid here and tepid there and talk up a rhetoric, but never fully commit ourselves to it, then we're not never going to get anything done. And there's going to be these kind of conversations around over and over and over again. I personally would say that Vaush is full of shit. And I personally will say that what's needed, my solution is that we need a Labor Party in this country. We need a Labor Party. We do not need to keep encouraging the Democrats to do the same old, which is to promise as little to the people and then end up doing nothing once you're in power. And then if you call it the Democrats out, they'll go and say, well, you're a turncoat, you're basically just encouraging the right wing to have more legislative success. And that's just not the case, not at all. So anyway, let me go ahead and let's see what we have here. We have every day said Tucker didn't in hell. Probably didn't, and it might help him if he did. Dr. Nick Rivera, how are you doing this morning? Morning, Willie. Good morning, Dr. Nick. Let's see. Well, we have here. I don't know. Let's see. Oh my God! I think we got some trolls here, folks. That's what it's looking like. Let's see. Let's see. Oh gosh, we got some trolls in here. Let's laugh at the trolls. Yeah, yeah, it's getting kind of spicy in here with some of these folks. Let's see. All right. And if that's intended toward me, yeah, I'm not a big influencer. I admit that. I mean, I'm not an influencer. I just like to go and talk about what's on my mind when I'm over here on social media. Let's see. Okay. All right. Let's see. Yeah, we got some trolls here. So yes, Buster, a Labor Party. We need a Labor Party. You know, you can laugh about a Labor Party, but you know, what is going on currently is not working. So okay, and okay, yeah. I mean, you know, if people want to sit there and watch Vaush and you know just watch his stuff and all of that, that's all on them. You know, I mean, to sit there and to watch Vaush, if that's what they want to do, this is what I got to say. I got to say this. That's what you get with Vaush. But you know what? I'm fair. I'm a fair person. That's just not a Vaush thing. So that's just not a Vaush thing. I'm a fair person. Um, you know, we can talk about this if you like, because before Vaush, well, what do I have to say about that? I don't know. Man, how should I word this? Prior to Vaush? That's what I got to say about that whole matter. Whether we're talking about Shank Ugert or we're talking about Vaush Limbaugh. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about future live streams. I should be doing a live stream tomorrow. I forgot what time it's listed on my YouTube page, and I have that's tomorrow, Thursday. I have a live stream on Friday at 5 p.m. It's not, I don't have the thumbnail yet, but I have it on 5 o'clock with Jimi Sunderland and myself. We are inviting Angie Moon. She will be our guest. I have a live stream planned on Saturday as well. So y'all know where to come back and you know, watch what I have to say about this. Let's see. We have some more comments here. Let's see. Do you know anything about the rumors about? Do you know anything about the rumors about Vaush? Something about his folders and horses. I just found out about it, and again, I didn't see it, but I heard about it watching the Vanguard. Yeah, forgive me for watching the Vanguard, but that's where I found out about it, and yeah, I thought it was kind of funny to mention this. Let's see. Let's see here. I'm looking through here. Okay. Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, well, what I have to say about it is, I don't condone things that, violates the rights of children or violates the rights of mammals who are not human. I think that certain things are off limits in that regard. I know it's believe it was like a cartoon situation or anime, what have you. Sick, but if that's what they want to look at, I mean, as long as they're not actually doing anything against kids or horses, I don't understand it, but it is what it is. So anyway, if y'all will like what you heard, please press like and comment. Comment any way if you disagree with what I have to say. We'll have a conversation. So there's the comment area on my video. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we're in fact the muckrakers of our time. Let me also say that to always reject corporate media. And actually, I do want to say these things about Vaush. And I sit there giving my closing statements, but let me go ahead and say this about Vaush real quick, because I have my notes here. The fact that he's anti-Julian Assange is a problem. The fact that he's vote blue no matter who and an asshole about it is a problem. The fact that he's pro-war is a problem. And the fact that he's anti-third party is a problem. And the harm reduction that he offers is not harm reduction, really, at the end of the day. So, yeah, that's what I have to say. And yes, thank you, PV Mayo. I agree. So anyhow, as I said, please subscribe to this channel here, reject corporate media, and free Assange, free Palestine, free healthcare for all, and free speech. Y'all go ahead and take care, even my haters.